Hello from my straw bale homestead in the Canadian countryside. Whether this is your first time here or you are returning, welcome. It is wonderful to share my home, my pottery, and my life with you. Today I will be giving you tips on creating a gentle curved interior in your wheel-thrown bowls. With over 30 years of pottery experience and 25 years of teaching pottery, I am here to share tips and tutorials with you, as well as daily activities at our homestead and musings on this human journey we call life. I also sew our clothing, and I'll make sure to list the sewing patterns I'm wearing in the description box below.
Welcome back. Today I'm only going to throw one thing, and I'm going to make it big. So I'm going to throw a large serving bowl, and I'm not going to throw it directly on the wheel because it'll be so hard to get off. I guess I could just leave it on the wheel because it's the only thing I'm throwing today, but I have my little sticky mat bat grabber thing, so I'm going to throw it on there. I'm a bit of a tool minimalist, and there's only a few things that I think anybody actually needs for pottery, but this is a really nice to have. I don't have a lot of extra things, but if you do not have one of these, it is worth it. It's a little chamois pad, and it just sits right on the wheel like that. You want to just have it damp, so you want to wet it, wring it out, and then set it down flat. And I'm going to just set my plastic board bat thingy right on top. And if I don't apply too much pressure, that should be enough to hold it. Whenever you are throwing on a bat, there is the risk of pushing the bat off, so you do need to be aware of that. You can't lean in quite as hard as you would otherwise. I have no idea how much clay this is because I don't usually weigh my clay. My pottery students always laugh because I compare things to the size of fruit. So this would be about the size of a large pie pumpkin, and it's fairly heavy. If I had to guess, I don't know. I don't even know. Anyway, we'll get started. That I have the clay centered, I'm going to open it up. When you're making a bowl, there's a few things that you need to do differently than when you're just throwing a cylinder or something with a flat bottom. I see a lot of beginner bowls that have flat bottoms and then a side. You don't want any corner on the inside of your bowl. You want it to be a nice, gentle curve, and there's a couple ways to get it there. So the first thing you're going to do is actually throw that curve in while you're opening up your piece. And then the other thing you're going to do is get comfortable with a tool like this one. I know there's lots of different versions of this. You can have wooden ones, you can have flexible rubber ones. I honestly think the metal ones are hands down the best ones to use. They are a little bit intimidating to learn, but once you get the hang of it, it is the best tool. When you're opening for a bowl, you don't want to open straight across. You want to open up. And if we can back up for a second, there's one thing I should have mentioned before I even opened this piece up. Decide what shape you want your bowl before you start opening it up. So do you want a wide, shallow bowl? Do you want a narrow bowl, or something in the middle? Because the pad of clay you're using before you open up your hole should reflect that. So if you're doing a wide, shallow bowl, your pad of clay should be nice and wide and short. If you're doing a regular size bowl, something like what I started would be fine. So I've got my nice curve on the inside now. I'm going to start pulling up the walls. I still want to pull up a cylinder. If you haven't seen my video on throwing a cylinder and why it's important, I'll make sure I link it at the end of this video. But even with a bowl, you want to start with a cylinder. It can have a slight flare to it, that's fine, but the second it starts to go up too far, you will lose control of it. The second thing you have to do when you're throwing any bowl is leave extra clay at the bottom. This is pretty much one of the only shapes that you're going to do that. Normally we try to pull all the clay up, but bowls and the curve of that underside really needs that extra clay left there to support it, which then gets trimmed off later. So I drew my bowl shape in just a little bit because I really want to keep that control. The other thing with bowls that you should do is leave the upper part of them a little thicker. So I'm going to leave the last couple inches of my wall just a little bit thicker than I normally would. That way when I stretch the bowl open, it doesn't get too thin. Now, while I'm throwing and pulling up the walls, I have to be careful that I don't ruin that beautiful curve on the inside. So right now I have this nice shape like this. Now, if I go digging my fingers into that corner to pull up my clay, I'm gonna lose that and I'm gonna end up with a flat base and a wall. Again, we don't want that for a bowl. So as I'm pulling up, when I'm down at the bottom in that curve, my fingers have to keep that curve. So the outside hand is almost scooping underneath to meet it, and then the two are working together to keep that nice, gentle flow. It's always easiest to remove the extra tiny bit of clay at the bottom with your tool before you open up. That way your walls aren't in your way. I'm not going to take away a lot though. Normally this all down here, you can see down here, this would be clay that I would normally dig under and pull up. And it would normally be clay that either got trimmed off wet or got pulled up into the walls. I am intentionally going to leave that clay there because I need it for the support. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of clay off that I don't need. And I'm going to leave the rest. The next step is to open up the bowl and then to shape it. To open up the bowl, I'm going to support both the inside and the outside with my hands. I'm not doing any pulling or lifting up of more clay. I have all the clay lifted that I want. And I'm going to simply lean out. So you're prying the walls open. One thing you really want to make sure of is that you don't belly too much right at the bottom. I see this on a lot of forms when people are trying to create some sort of belly, if it's a teapot or a bowl. You don't want it to come out too far past its base. This curve should be very subtle at the bottom, and then you can open up wider. When we go and we trim it in at the bottom, that's when we get the effect of the really nice round bellied shape. But you cannot do it at this stage because you're going to belly out past your base and gravity will flop your bowl over. I think that's a nice amount of open, so I'm going to use my magic tool now. I'm going to use the tool's curve on the inside of the bowl to finish off the shaping. It's already a beautiful shape on the inside, but this is to get rid of any finger grooves or marks or inconsistencies. I'll do that on the inside first, and then I'll take it on the outside and use it there as well. When I'm using it on the inside, I like to bend it away from me and allow it to follow the shape of the wall. I often hold it in one spot and then move it and hold it in another spot. Sometimes when we keep this tool moving as we're throwing, we can end up with not as smooth a shape. So I'm going to do that on the inside. On the outside, I'm going to use the flat end of the tool and I'm going to bend it to follow the curve. If you're intimidated by using this tool, I can do a whole other video on this tool alone. But your main thing that you want to keep in mind is that the clay needs to flow this way. So long as it's flowing this way, there's no problems, no matter how you hold it. If it's curved, if it's straight. The second you get into trouble is when the clay is coming towards the tool. So you have to make sure you keep the tool in a position where it's either in the center or off to the right side. If you're throwing left-handed, that will be reversed, and so will the direction of your wheel. It'll still be going away from you. I always start with this tool down in the bottom corner. I want to really establish that curve, so I'm just holding it and pressing it in at a 45-degree angle to that curve, and then I start working my way up the walls. And then the other place that you're going to use the tool on the inside before we move to the outside is in the very middle. Now the key in the very middle is to really watch where you're scraping the slip away, and when you hit dead center, you need to back away and go back the opposite direction. You want to make sure that tool doesn't come beyond the center, because then the clay is coming towards the tool and it'll wreck your piece quickly. It'll pull this tool out of your hand, create a big gouge. It might even cut you because it's quite sharp. So please be careful. And then to use this tool on the outside, I am going to just wet the inside a little bit. This tool scraped a lot of the water off of the walls so they're not slippery anymore. We always want to keep the walls slippery when our hands are touching them, because we're going to pull our piece off center really quickly if it sticks to our hands. So again, this is when we curve it in the same shape that we want it to be curved. I don't worry about doing too much on the outside. That can also be corrected at the trimming stage. So long as the inside is perfect, we're always trimming to the inside shape anyway. So the outside can take cleaning up later. And the last thing before I take this bowl off the wheel is simply to cut underneath it. Even though it's on a bat and I can easily move it without cutting underneath it, it's going to be so hard to get off. I have broken many a wire tool trying to saw through pieces that I forgot to cut under at this stage. It will reattach, it will need to be cut under again as it's drying, but if you don't do it now, good luck to you at the leather hard stage. That's it for now for bowl throwing. Let me know if you have any comments, if you have any questions, and anything you would like to add to what I already said. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you later on in the video. Enjoy.
I have always had an appreciation for all things handmade. Handmade objects have a life and a soul of their own. They carry the essence of their maker and also energy that is intrinsically their own, much like a parent and their child. Although I have a deep appreciation for beautiful handmade pieces on display in museums, their life behind glass feels cold and static. Handmade objects are designed to be used and interacted with. They long to nourish us and be vessels in our homes. They love to be held in our warm hands and feel the soft caress of our lips on their tactile surfaces. They cherish being an intimate part of our daily lives. Ask any physicist and they will tell you that all objects are mostly empty space and energy. Although many people may not be aware of it, spaces also hold energetic frequency. When we walk into a big box store, we feel very different than when we enter a home filled with love and warmth. It seems like many of the buildings we create in present day don't take into account the humans they were built for. Whether it be the abundant use of toxic materials or unnatural lighting and harsh angular surfaces, they simply don't feel good to be in. I've always been very aware of how spaces make me feel, and it was one of the main reasons why we chose to build with natural materials, incorporate natural light, and create a space that feels like it is welcoming you with a warm hug. Although natural materials help make a space feel inviting, they are only a piece of the puzzle. The rest of the puzzle is made up of intention, love, and care. I remember walking into the house of my friend's mother when I was in my early 20s. The house itself was near a major highway in the suburbs of a big city. It was a mass-produced mid-century bungalow. There was nothing special about the house, nor its location. But when you entered it, you could feel the warmth and love wrap around you like a handmade linen quilt. It was surrounded by beautiful flower gardens, which were carefully tended and full of life. I honestly can't remember what the inside even looked like. I only remember that it felt like entering a magical cottage in the woods. This home was special because of the time invested into loving it and the beautiful hearts of the people who inhabited it. There is a great societal pressure to be going places and doing things in our culture. When people are at home, they are often rushing or distracted by screens. When we pour our time and energy into our homes, we receive back tenfold what we put into them. We are creating a space of intention and love to house our human bodies and our souls. If we have children, we are creating a space that embraces them and makes them feel safe, warm, and treasured. When we care for our surroundings, we care for ourselves. When we fill our homes with slow-cooked meals, natural materials, handmade objects, heartwarming stories, joy, laughter, and love, we are creating a sacred space for ourselves and our families.
There's honestly nothing that I love more than being at home, being with my family, looking after the house, baking delicious things, making cozy fires, cuddling kitties, and I think that's lovely. So if you're somebody who feels the pressure to go out and be doing things when really all you want to do is enjoy your home and the cozy space that you've created, then this is your permission to stay home and do what actually brings you joy and makes you feel good and warms your heart. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will see you, as always, very soon. Take care.
You silly girl. What are you doing with your rock? Where do you got your rock?